Can you see me there, buddy?
I can. How are you?
You can't? I can see
I
you
can.
perfectly. Okay, you can. I'm trying to do it through the laptop, but I'm having issues. Let me see if I can do it another way, because it's going to be much better. There we go. I think I got you there for a second. Anyway, now we'll do it on the phone. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
It's good.
How you been, man?
I've been good. How are you?
Good. As well as can be expected,
I
considering.
know.
Right?
So where are you bunker down at?
Home, Miami. Here we go. It says live. If I click on that, I should be able to get you, right? So I can do this on the computer, be a little bit easier. Home. I mean, I went to the office this morning to check on the humidor, make sure humidification's okay, and kind of look at stuff. We have a small order to take out tomorrow, but it's been really slow. It's been really slow. Yeah.
I was wondering because you're one of those people who you not only have your own company, but you have a factory too.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. I mean, not to jump right in, but like, how is
no, please
all
do.
of this kind of affecting you? Because I don't know if a lot of people are like you in that not only do you have a business, your own cigar lines that you're trying to promote and keep going, but
correct,
you have a factory too. So I would imagine this is like double stressful.
Oh man, it's killing me. It's killing me. The factory is shut down for the next, I think it's another 2 or 3 weeks. The government over there issued a 25-day shutdown. And the way things are, it's very fluid. So for all I know, they'll extend it. There's no way of knowing, And then you're concerned about the idea that when you do open again, will you receive all those workers back again? I don't know what's going to happen there. So there's a lot of unknowns. And then to top it off, my line comes from that factory. So when I run through whatever stock I have now here in Miami, when we open up again, how does that leave me in terms of production going forward? So I'm scared about all of those things. Yeah, I mean, I look at the bright side. The bright side is we're not sick. My parents are healthy, keeping tabs with my family and friends, and everyone seems to be doing all. Although we've had a couple of hits here and there, but, we're very blessed. So I try to keep optimism up, right, or going. But the factory is a scary proposition, yeah. It's double the pressure, double the stress.
Yeah, because like I said, I don't think people realize too that, a factory being closed means everything's like there's nothing happening.
There's nothing.
How does that affect production?
Well, we have cigars in stock for production, both for my line and the other lines we make for. And I think we can satisfy orders that were frozen at that time. But going forward, again, I don't know. For whatever reason, in a factory, and I think I can speak to this even including, let's say, Nicaragua and Honduras, but in Dominican especially, if you come to my factory, the women in packaging, the people doing the deveining, the people separating wrapper, the people doing the job of collecting the tobacco and distributing it and whatnot to the workers are always the same. They're always identical. The rollers, though, fluctuate incredibly, and I don't know why. And you talk to any one of them, and they've worked at every single factory in the Dominican, in vast numbers of cities, even all the way to La Romana, which is really far away from where we're at. And they just come and go. And it's not a matter of pay scale or anything, because it's agreed upon that everybody gets paid the same. In terms of rollers, there's a tight unity with cigar shop owners over there, or rather factory owners, that we don't try to essentially steal personnel from others. So it's not a matter of money. It's just a matter they just get bored and they move, and then they'll come back again. So going into it, if they don't produce, I don't know what's going to happen. Will I have enough people to package? Yeah. The rest will function fine, but the production staff does scare me. I don't know. And I also don't know if that country has the infrastructure set to do what we're doing here, where these folks live truly paycheck to paycheck. I mean, really, to a degree that we don't comprehend here in the States. And while the government's giving something, and we as employers are as well, it's not sufficient, really. And I don't know if these folks can withstand that blow. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. It's scary times.
Well, I'm sure we'll get back to this topic and within the time that we have for today. But what I wanted to do with this platform, Deep Cuts, is that, working on the media side, when we're working on different stories, it's usually a segment of your business, or it's just about business. It's not about you. You know, it's about your cigar lines. It's not about you. So I wanted to use this kind of opportunity since we're all kind of grounded.
Yeah.
Kind of help get to know, you know, different people in the industry and help people who are followers of me and maybe followers of you who just don't know the full story. Give them a little bit more insight about who you are and what you do and about your company and your cigar lines and stuff like that. So
No,
it's
sure.
not too complicated or anything like that, but it's just a matter of like, you know, let's dive a little deeper basically into your story than what we could usually do with a basic editorial.
I getcha. I think my story, maybe a few people are familiar with it. My great-grandfather's a tobacco farmer. When he left Spain, wound up in Cuba, in the westernmost part of the island, Pinar del Rio, and he sort of fell into it. He was not a tobacco farmer in Spain, and he was just a kid when he made it to Cuba. My grandfather took that over and really did very well with it. And 59, everything gets confiscated and we leave, right? Like a lot of Cuban families left the island. So I got here in 1970. I was 4 years old. And my dad started an air conditioning business shortly thereafter. He did very well. And then one of his brothers decides that he wants to kind of pursue what my grandfather had been doing. He goes to Dominican Republic. This is the 80s. And he and my father started a factory over there. My dad was essentially financing the operation. My uncle was living there full time. And along that time, we were able to fortunately start doing business with folks like Carlos Durano Sr., who was a godsend, and he was starting up his thing. And the first Gurkha cigar ever, the one that's with the cognac, not the HMR, not the one that's really, really expensive, the other one. And the name escapes me right now. We were the first that did that. A lot of really good clients came through there at that time. And through the time of the boom, it was going great. And then shortly thereafter, my dad and my uncle go separate ways. And when my dad was just sitting there trying to get back his investment and had opened up a tiny little factory just to stay busy, I flew over there one evening and I said, listen, I know you want to come back, but I think I'd like to try this because I'm an only child. It's kind of a shame, 3 generations. Let's give this a go. So we did, and right after that, we landed, some pretty big clients, and then the factory grew, and that's what I've been doing. So my job over here was to attract clients, to bring them over, to essentially do everything other than roll the cigars, which my dad was handling. The business aspect of it, the finances of it, that was on me. And then with the FDA just hanging guillotine over our heads, we had to launch a brand. And we did. And I've been asked, why didn't you launch it before? And the answer is twofold. First of all, distribution of a brand is really, really tough. I'm still finding it extremely challenging. It's easier to manufacture cigars than it is to sell the cigars if you have the brand. And number two, you sort of step on your client's toes at the factory to some degree. They feel a little slighted that you're making your own cigars and you're competing essentially with them in the same market. What eased that restriction or that feeling was that they understood that because of the FDA, I had no choice but to launch. And so everyone understood and we were fine. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Now I essentially spend a lot of time in an airplane visiting cities and different states and, just getting to know folks out there and hopefully getting my cigars into their hands and having that individual say, hey, this is a good stick. I'm going to make it part of my repertoire. I always say that. I don't want to be the only thing you smoke. I just want to be one of the things you smoke. I think if you're only smoking me, you're missing out on a lot. And if you're only smoking something else, you're missing out on a lot. So that's what I've been doing. And, friends of mine in the industry, we were discussing this notion how sick of flying we were and how sick of travel we were. And now, God, I miss it.
Like you brought it on. I'm going to blame you.
Oh, man. Yeah, right? I mean, we miss it so much. And it's essential to my job. I can't make this work if I don't hop on a plane. I have to. And here I am not hopping on any damn plane going nowhere. So, yeah. But anyway, that's it.
So how are you kind of using this time to basically continue to evolve the business? Are you brainstorming new ideas to kind of bring out once things kind of ease up a little bit, or are you like,
Yeah,
what's
well,
going on with that?
that's a good question. It's a chess game, right? So a brainstorming in terms of, I have no idea, for example, if the PCA is going to take place this year. Now,
Right.
I paid for my booth, right? I paid for my booth space already, so I've got that reserved. But then going forward, I certainly haven't paid for the build out of the actual booth itself. So I'm thinking, I'm crunching numbers, right? And I'm thinking, okay, if they cancel it outright, then I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get that booth again next year, because that would be the right thing to do. I think they're gonna behave appropriately. But if they don't cancel it outright, do I just not go? What condition are shop owners going to be in terms of disposable income to buy new products? How about flying out to Vegas and expending
Yeah.
that?
I mean,
It's expensive.
unfortunately,
So
yeah, it's something that I think everybody, whether you're an exhibitor or attendee, I mean, I think it's something that you're having to really debate and figure out right now. Because even
yeah,
for on the media side, it's like, I mean, the issue that we usually do for PCA is our biggest issue. So we're
hmm
kind of proceeding like you, like it's going to happen. But I think a lot of manufacturers are kind of wondering themselves, like, what's really going to happen? Is it going to be like at the end of May, or middle of June? They go, "Oops, sorry, it's not logistically possible." And then what? It's just like,
well, even something like we were. And I know you leave this towards the last part of your segment, but we were considering, I'll get more into detail at the last part, but we're considering launching something new
right,
and exciting. Well, that project requires everything from a new band to a new box to a new blend to a new everything. And all of a sudden, here I am sitting in Miami, Florida, and not doing anything about that project because I can't. So if this thing lifts, does it give me sufficient time to adequately put that product forward? And my gut instinct tells me no. I don't think I'll be able to. So little things like that sort of add up, and they'll wake you up in the middle of the night. So what I've been trying to do is stay relevant. I've done a couple of podcasts. I'm doing this with you. Jack Tranya and I went live the other day from his house, and I was happily smoking in Espinosa, and we were just getting it out there and sort of talking to fellow smokers, and I don't know. I mean, checking with stores to see how they're doing. I know some of them are struggling because the curbside pickup thing doesn't work that well for everybody.
right,
Some shops are not set up that way to be so easily accessible. I can think of Prime Cigar here in Miami, in Brickell, to park your car to then get out to get. I mean, as opposed to a shop that's in a strip mall, for example, that's much easier for someone to get to than those. So I worry about those individuals, and I worry about not the owners, but then the people that work for them, the hourly folks who are doing it, even restaurants, right? You can support your restaurant, but are you supporting your local waiter? And probably the answer is no. You're supporting the restaurant. And now, does it trickle down to the waiter? Perhaps, but they were living off tips. So all those things have me concerned. That's because, yeah, I like to see people do well, and this bothers me.
I mean, you just kind of touched on a little bit, like how you're trying to pivot and go with the flow, basically,
Yeah.
to keep things going. I mean, does this situation change how you might do things in the future? Like, might you integrate more kind of things like this into your marketing strategy, where you're just jumping on a video maybe once a week to kind of keep touch with everybody, just to kind of keep things going? Or
I think so. I think that's a solid point, and I think we have to do that a little more. It's unfortunately, our industry, unlike others, really doesn't do well with Zoom or all this other stuff. I need to have you have the cigar in your hand, and I need to see you face to face. It just works that way. It's a handshake thing, and we can't really do this like this. But this may alter all of that, and given all this right now, this was super easy to get on with you.
yeah,
Given instances like this, then can I then contact a shop owner and say, I'm going to send you the product in advance for you to try. I'm going to contact you in a week. We'll smoke it together over the phone or over the computer or whatnot, virtually, so to speak. And we'll talk about it. And we'll talk about when I can go out there to do an event, and as opposed to fly, get to meet you, and then fly home and then fly back again for an event. That's an extra added cost for me. And certainly if the shop owner is amenable to it, then it would be beneficial for all. But I don't know. I'm thinking that things are going to change. Just hopping on a plane alone is a little scary right now because of the proximity to others. And then all the events going forward, right? So the Big Smoke, any event that you do that's fairly well attended, it's going to have more than 10 people. So everybody's right up against each other too.
Exactly.
When does this stop being a problem? And if it's seasonal, which it seems like it's going to be, then we're revisiting it next year as well, right? So maybe a different strain, but it'll be here. So, I don't know. I mean, smarter people than I are figuring that out. But, I mean, that's all you hear on the news. So, I don't know. I mean, it's put a damper on my creating a new brand. It certainly has lit a fire under my butt out of staying relevant with folks and, contacting local shops and seeing how they're doing and if they need anything. We've gotten orders here and there. I mean, we have an order, like I said, coming out tomorrow. And as soon as those orders come in, we fly to get them out. Again, because the store owner is actually saying, hey, I need that product to sell it. And number two, because you want to stay relevant again, right? So, we may be throwing in a little bit of swag to go with that order so that the name stays out there, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because you can't, I think everybody's in the same boat. So it's like the first week of quarantine, you're like, this isn't so bad. We can do it. And then like things are really starting to slow down to the point where like even on the media side, you don't see as many press releases coming out right now because nobody can do anything. Nobody, if they had a release plan, it's not logistically possible to release that thing. So it's like everything is like at a standstill and you're just like, wow, what, how do I keep building a business in this kind of, environment? So I definitely sympathize with what you're going through and what you and other brand owners and like you said, the retail owners are going through because it's an ordeal to kind of get over, and then once things start back up, it's not just like you start where you were. I mean, you're kind of making up for lost time. So it's a lot.
Yeah, this year is essentially a wash at this point. It really is, and it's a shame because, I've spoken about this with several of my friends as well, and my wife and whatnot. This is a commodity; it's not a necessity, right? This is disposable income speaking right here. So if you find yourself in a tight spot and you go back to a job that doesn't exist, do you put food on your table? Or do you buy a cigar? Right. So we have to think about all those things. And, to sit there and say it's all going to be great is to put your head inside the ground and just turn a blind eye. You can't do that. So you've got to set yourself up for, and the worst part of it is it's not just us here in the States, right? So I was trying to break into the European market. That hit a screeching halt. Right? that stopped in a hurry. There's no sense in that. And you can't sit there and say, well, if I can't sell in the States, I'm going to find other markets to sell in. This is worldwide. And it's worse in a lot of other places than it is here. So where does that leave you? But anyway, we all kind of preaching to the choir, I think.
Yeah. Well, for those who haven't smoked Casa Cuevas, I thought it would be a great time to just kind of introduce them to the brand and get them thinking about trying it when they can.
Okay.
So I know I have a couple of your sticks sitting here that, can flash up.
There you go. That's our Reserva, Connecticut, I believe. Our natural Reserva. Yeah. We launched that, speaking of launching things, launched that at IPCPR last year, and we'd had our core line out for 2 years. We hit our 3-year mark April 1st, which is my grandmother's birthday, and right in the midst of all this nonsense, we hit our 3-year mark. So yeah, no party, no celebration.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
To be delayed this year.
Yeah. If you haven't smoked our cigars, I urge you to try them. Listen, anybody can try a cigar for the first time, and you can go to a shop and pick one up. If you don't go back and become a return customer, that shop gained nothing and I've gained nothing. I'm very confident that you're going to like them. Now, they're not for everyone. Every flavor profile is a little bit different. I don't pretend to try to make a cigar that everyone's going to like, but certainly they've been very well received, and that's why we've prospered over the last 3 years. We had actually grown at a good clip. And it's a testament to people liking them and keep buying them, because if they don't buy them again, nothing gained, right? So we have our core line, which is an Habano, a Maduro, and a Connecticut. And then the Reserva line, for you geeks out there, it's a grandfathered product. And that's why we only came out with a Maduro and a Connecticut in that line.
Maduro Classic.
There you go.
Here.
Yep. That's our core line one. And the blue label now is the one for the new Reserva line. If you take a minute to look at the bands, our initial core line had 3 seals attached to the actual name, and that's the seal of Spain, Cuba, which is where I was born, and the Dominican, which is the factory's at, and 4 stars, which represents the 4 generations. And I've got to give a lot of credit to Humberto Arias from Cigar Package Design. The guy's phenomenal. He came up with all these ideas.
He's my guest tomorrow.
He's phenomenal.
We're going to be talking about. Ray wants to know: do you have a website?
Yes, CasaCuevasCigars.com. And unfortunately, I've been remiss in adding all the retailers that have opened up recently to that, because there were some changes in my company a few months ago. But if you, especially in a time like this, if you go to the online retailers, you go to Neptune's, which is local here, you go to JR Cigars, you'll be able to find them. Thompson carries them, Famous carries them, obviously CI carries them, so you can find them. And if you're able to support your local mom and pop shop, then by all means, start with them. Because the online retailers have been doing what they're doing. They haven't really missed a beat, but the mom and pop shop that hasn't been selling online or selling any other way, except people walking in, now find themselves in a precarious position trying to learn how to do this on the go and not shut their doors. So
yeah, that's what I was wondering, like with this situation that we're in, will this inspire more retailers to kind of look into adding maybe an e-commerce part of their to their business? So if we are under another situation like this in the future, could they easily pivot? It's kind of hard to do that
on the run.
Of it.
Yeah.
And I was saying, even having like an inventory list, if you are a mom and pop, where you can easily go to somebody's website, maybe you can order it, but you can at least see what they have. Because there's always that trouble of somebody releases a new product, and I was having this situation last week. Somebody was releasing a new product, and all of a sudden, I wanted to get it, and it was like, where do I find it? And there was no. It was a search. It was like a search to go through and find this product. It was like going to a couple of retail sites and going to the big ones, and they didn't have it. And so it's. If there's one thing we can all learn from the situation, I think, is that there's always room for improvement, or at least making business a little bit easier, so that should there be a situation like this again, or even a localized situation where a retailer can't, operate as normal, you can make it easier for your customers to easily find what they want or get what they want.
Absolutely. We can all do better. I mean, even from my end, I think going forward, when this lifts and I'm able to receive stock again, I'm going to double up my stock of what I normally carry, because right now I'm running really low. I've been selling steadily, very slowly, but it's moving. But there's going to come a point where I'm going to run out, and I don't know when that factory of mine is going to open up again. So,
right.
You know what I mean? Yes, there's product there that's going to be able to be sent to me, but production isn't ongoing as we speak. So that sets me in a difficult position. So I'm not going to get caught with my pants down again. I think I'm going to have more than what I need here in stock in Miami, Florida. And should something like this occur again, then I'm comfortable knowing that I can at least withstand a few months of not being able to produce, let's say, or not being able to receive product,
Right.
So, yeah.
And even in your factory, will you have to kind of rethink how you do things there? Because this whole situation is about human touch and being too close to people. And that's all what the cigar industry is about, from the production side to the final side. So it's like, do you have to now, think like, go back to start at the factory and say, okay, everybody's gonna have to wear gloves or a mask or something like this until.
But you've been to factories. I mean, you can't you can't make this with a glove. You just can't,
Right.
right? And you can't separate the leaves with a glove, and you can't devein with a glove, and you can't do a lot of things. Now, maybe they'll come up with some gloves that are really high tech, and they are essentially your hand. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like, but imagine a second skin over your skin, and then no harm, no foul. Then you can do that. But that's not readily available that I know of. And so, I mean, even working on a computer with those gloves on, it's a pain in the butt. Then you try to swipe on a phone with a latex glove on. That's not happening. So all those things, let alone making cigars, and ultimately, when people get a cigar and they light it up, we're oftentimes concerned about whether that cutter at some shop has been slobbered over by 88,000 patrons.
Yes.
Truth of the matter is, it's been touched by 88,000 people anyway. So you're slapping
Right.
something in your mouth that some dude or some lady has essentially just been slobbering over to some degree, and maybe that has to change. I don't know how. Yeah, they get fumigated. Yeah, they get frozen, but they're fairly dirty. It is what it is. It's just a fact. It's not a machine-made product.
It's a handcrafted thing. That's the whole.
100%.
That's the industry.
100%.
So you kind of get what you get what you get.
And that's why sometimes, I'm always so quick to forgive construction in a cigar when I'm talking about my fellow manufacturers. Whenever I grab a cigar and someone goes, "Oh my gosh, it's plugged," this and the other, I go, "Whoa, slow your roll. Just because this one's plugged doesn't mean the rest of the damn line is plugged. Let's smoke a few more and then we'll see." And it's a man-made thing, and you can put it through a machine. We have a draw master. Everything goes through a draw master. It gives you a scale, but if a cigar is going to canoe on you, or if a cigar is not rolled appropriately, that machine will only pick up draw. Everything else, it may not pick up. So all of a sudden, you're having flaws with that cigar, and you're going to dismiss that brand completely. I don't think you should. And, and I am one that we stand behind our product. I always tell shops, if there's a consumer that comes back and he bought a box and he's got a complaint, I replace that box, no questions asked. And
Wow.
It's only happened a handful of times. And if any of the shops out there, they know that I do stand behind that 1,000%. I like to hear if something has gone wrong. I like to hear, even from friends and family that are smoking my cigars, "Hey, Louis, this one's not burning right," whatever. And I go back and I call my father. I go, "We got to pay attention to this. What's happening?" These folks, when they're rolling, will roll sometimes upwards of 400 cigars a day, and they get, for pardon the pun, they get on a roll while they're rolling, and it's almost like they have this methodology to them. They get in a rhythm, and if they're doing something wrong from the get-go, you could conceivably crank out 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 of those sticks in a really short period of time. And next thing you know, you've got a lot of that out there. And then to walk it back, it's really tough. So it's constant attention to detail. Constant, you got to be smoking your own stuff just to figure out if it's okay. And as soon as anything pops up, then off we go. Case in point, we had a small issue with La Mandaria, the sledgehammer, where the binder that we had purchased, it looked beautiful, it smelled beautiful, but it wasn't combusting. And so La Mandaria is a shagfoot, so what you start smoking is a tippy tip portion of it. So about a half an inch or so, you're smoking binder. Well, that binder, I could light it under a torch. That damn thing just was not catching. So we had started mailing some out. I got in contact with those shops. I go, "Please put those away. I'll replace, plus I'll give you extra." The entire stash that came was discarded and thrown away. Everything we had at the factory was discarded. We had to start from scratch, but we caught it and we nipped it in the bud. I lost money in the prospect, but at least I didn't have that bad first impression with someone who's trying that cigar for the first time saying, "I can't get this damn thing to light."
And the first impression is so key.
Oh my gosh.
Especially in this industry, which
Yeah,
you don't really talk about a lot, because I mean, like you were saying, like if it's a draw issue,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people aren't going to say, "Oh, it's just one roller. I'll keep on smoking it." They smoke that cigar, especially if they paid for it, and they go, "That's it."
Never again.
Don't, and they always have that impression of your product from going forward. So I think that attention to quality that you just talked about is so key with whatever you do. You know, I mean, whatever business you're in, I mean, you have to worry about, like you said, that quality, and then have a plan in place to rectify the issue.
Yeah. 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 So we try to stay on top of all that. But in the end, going back to it, it's still a man-made thing, and a lot of hands touch those cigars that you guys are smoking. It's interesting too. I've always made it a point to say that if you take a roller from the 19th century and you drop them into my factory, or the person was deveining, or the person is doing wrapping or whatever, they know exactly what to do. It really has not changed. And you put them out in the fields, and I mean, you take away some of the technology, but for the most part, it's identical the way it's always been. And business is still done on a handshake. You literally go to the shop, you visit that shop owner, you get to know them, they bring the product in, and then you meet the patrons through a cut and light or an event, and you're talking to people one-on-one. It's, you know, how many products, there's stuff that we buy on a day-to-day basis that we use. I don't know who the hell makes it. I mean, I know the name of the company, but, you know, I don't know them. I don't know who's repping them. I don't have any idea. But yet cigars, still, people go out and they meet the manufacturer, and they want to find out about the factory, and the shop owner wants to find out about you and your history. And it's very, very interesting in that way. Very interesting.
I always like to ask people when I'm doing a story, what have you learned about yourself since starting this company? So I know you've been in the company a long time, but I know in the last couple of years, especially since you've launched your own line, you've been even more involved. So what have you kind of learned about yourself in this process?
And by the way, I've been with the company for a number of years. I mean, I started back in 2009, 100% with my father. So it's been 11 years now. But the part that I was doing before had really nothing to do with what I'm doing now. So I would talk to someone who wanted a brand. We'd fly out together. We'd work on the blends. We'd establish a cost, a price, whatever, and that would be it, right? And I deal with the rollers and this and the other, but that was more on a, hey, hello, how you doing? How's it going? Or, you know, that kind of thing. What I've learned about myself is, wow, about myself. I'll tell you what, I've learned that I'm more of a people person than I thought I ever was. I never really thought I was a people person. And yet I'll get to these events and I really enjoy talking to people about whatever the heck they want to talk about. And it's not always cigars. Some folks will come in and go, hey, I heard your great-grandfather was from Spain. Yeah. Well, I lived in Spain for blah, 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 blah. And then we'll have a conversation about Spain, for example.
Right.
And I used to think, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this well. I don't know if I'm going to be engaging. I don't know if I'm going to appear interested, even though I may be. I don't know. And lo and behold, it's worked out. And again, going back to it, I was complaining about flying too much. I'm dying to get back out there. And it's not just a monetary thing. I was going to fly out to visit shops without having sold anything to those shops. I was going to get to know those people. So even that I'm missing, you know? I've learned that about myself. I've also learned that I had a lot to learn about being a businessman. There's a curve through all of this. I've made so many mistakes for the last couple of years. And I went in there a little cocky. I've got a couple of degrees. I'm fairly well educated. And all of a sudden you realize you don't know anything. Not really. So right. I've learned I have a lot of flaws. And I've also learned that I'm good with people a lot more than I thought I was. So anyway, there you go.
And somebody says that Luis is a great rep for his brand because he has not forgotten what it is to be a consumer. He understands our point of view.
I appreciate that.
A key,
Thank you.
Key, thought, because like when I was talking to Michael Herklotz a couple of days ago, I mean, here's a guy who's the VP of marketing and sales for, this big brand naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you really know his story, he started out at age 18 or 19 as, working in a tobacco store, just, doing retail. And he gradually built himself up to the point where he is now. But you kind of forget that. And I think him having that background, though, helped him to be able to better make cigars and better market them because he knows what it's like to be basically a retailer and also a consumer. Yeah,
it does help. It does help. I don't think you can ever forget what it's like to be on the other side. And, you know, a lot of times we'll go out, my wife and I, and I'll feel like smoking a cigar, and I'll step into a shop, and that shop doesn't carry my product. And even though I have cigars with me, the right thing to do is to buy a cigar. So I'll go to the brands that I support, that I like, and I'll buy that cigar. And I'm spending money to do so. And I'm not going to tell that I need a break because I'm in the industry and that other nonsense. It's still my 10, my 12, my 15, my $20 going out there, and I worked for that money. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for remembering that consumers are essentially getting a bill of some numeration and burning it. You know, they're burning it. They're lighting it on fire. A cigarette will give you that nicotine fix if you're addicted to the nicotine and whatnot. If you are drinking alcohol, you get a bit of that buzz, I don't know, whatever it may do. A cigar, you're kind of like sitting down, you're relaxing, I get it, but you can relax with a book too. You know, so
you're not setting it on fire.
Hey, you're not setting it on fire, my friend.
You can keep it for years. You can pass it on.
You can pay it forward. Exactly. I think someone asked the degrees. I have a degree in English literature, and then I taught for a while, although I didn't have a degree in education. And then I got a law degree at FIU Law as well. So yeah. Anyway, there we are.
Wow. So what's it like to work with family? I always like that question because I think if I had to work with my family, it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't happen. I know, especially in my sister. I can't imagine working with her, especially. So I'm always curious about people like you because I mean you're working with family and then you're going home to your family. So it's like how do you keep the two? Like how do you get work done and then but not make it too personal? Yeah, how do you create that balance?
That's an interesting question. Working with my father, let me back that one up because he's in the Dominican most of the time. Working with my father is always business. So we talk daily, but when the factory was up and running, we talk about business. We start with business. First he'll ask about the kids or whatnot, and then we go into business, and it's completely business. There's no room for familial forgiveness. There's no room for error, really. If the product is having issues being rolled, I call him on and I go, hey, we're having problems with this, and he gets on it. It's not, hey, Dad, I'm sorry. It's none of that. And by the same token, if I am trying to do a project and I'm not doing the things that should be done at the right moment, the way it should be, then he'll call me on that. My son, a different ballgame, right? So my son, I have that issue of being a father and handling a 21-year-old kid and saying, hey, I'm paying you to do this. You got to step it up. And then I'll feel sorry getting him up at 7 in the morning because I want to make it to the office early before everything's get going. He's, by the way, he's a full-time student at FIU, but does online classes. So he's got that. What I should be doing is tomorrow we're going to meet at the office at 7 a.m. And then by 10 a.m. we're going to visit shops and this and the other. What I'll wind up doing is, hey, come meet me at the office at 10 a.m. and then we'll visit shops. So I did the 3 hours on my own where I'm paying him really to be there with me for those 3 hours, but he wasn't. It's a little bit tougher with my kid. I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask him how he feels about it. But with my dad, it's a very smooth professional operation. Then again, I'm 53, not 21, so that makes a big difference.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the maturity sort of, I hope I'm a little mature at this point, has set in. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference, but it's hard. It's hard chastising your kid and him differentiating. Are you chastising me as dad, or are you chastising me as your boss? And
as a son too, it's hard to your father figure, whoever that might be in your life, whether it's your real father or another male figure. I mean, it's hard to differentiate, like you said, like when you get chastised, you're like, are you trying to tell me this, like you said, on a personal level or on a professional level? And it's hard, those lines get blurred, a lot.
They do.
So it's definitely another challenge of the business, but it sounds like
we're handling it. I mean,
navigate it.
We're trying to navigate it, and I mean, in the end, like a lot of companies that are family family companies in this industry of mine, of ours, I should say, it's a natural fit that my son is a part of it. It's a natural fit that my dad's still around and is a part of it. My wife, whenever she has a chance to fly out with me, because she's a teacher, but if we are able to do, let's say, the PCA, let's assume it goes forward in August or something, I don't know, and she's always there. So people see us as a family unit with a family business through and through, and it is to the fullest extent. So, it's cool, and I'm very blessed actually to be able to work with my father and my son. Not a lot of people are able to do that. I think it's pretty cool to be able to say and do that. So yeah, it doesn't get lost on me. It's a blessing, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Um, and off that topic of challenges, I mean, you talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but what's your experience been like trying to, like, you kind of made a shift in your business. I mean, you still do the cigars for other people, but when you said we're going to start our own brand. I mean, what's that experience been like? Suddenly going from just being
Much.
factory to providing services to somebody to suddenly you're doing it yourself and you're having to market it once it's rolled, sell it, create this big buzz for it. What's that experience been like?
It's been such a learning curve. I mean, I mentioned earlier, it's much more difficult to have the brand and to sell the brand. Having the brand, I can have a brand, right? I can just have cigars made and stock them up. But to sell that brand, to get it out there, the marketing of it has been really, really tough. I know Gabriel Piñeras and Creativas Group, Eliza Santana, I mean, they came on, and that was a godsend. They've been phenomenal, and they're very, very, very good at what they do. Folks like you, getting to know folks like you, I mean, you're essential to me, to have the cigars get out there. I mean it. I need that. And I recognized early on that there's a lot more than having the best cigar in the world. I remember, without mentioning which shop it is, there's a very, very large shop here in Central Florida. And the shop owner, he has since sold it, but the shop owner brings us in, and he brought in something like 30 boxes. And starting off, cash is king, and I needed that liquidity, so I was thrilled. So the cigars go in. It's an enormous humidor. I walked in one day to have a meeting with him, and he was in his office. So as I am going through the humidor, now no one there knew me other than him. So the folks who work his shop had no idea who I am. It doesn't matter. It took me maybe 20 minutes to find my cigars. Right? They were relegated to a corner somewhere in the bottom. They weren't doing very well. And then I realized quickly that the shop workers weren't following me in as a patron saying, hey, would you like to try something new? And I go, okay, so I can have a great product at a great price, but if nobody's grabbing it and no one's telling him to grab it, what happens? How do I make this something that people have heard of and want to at least give it a shot? And marketing is king there. And then also, that's why I'm very reluctant to put my cigars in territories where I don't have any representation whatsoever, because that shop owner needs that cut and light. That shop owner needs that individual to walk in and work that humidor and say, hey, what do you normally smoke, Joe? Joe normally smokes X. Listen, I want you to try this. You got to give this a go. Let me know what you think. If you don't like it, I'll buy you your favorite cigar back. Give this one a go. Give it a try. But if not, Joe's going to look at it and go, this looks interesting. I never heard of it. And he's going to buy something that costs the same, but that he knows, because it's his hard-earned money. That's been a tremendous challenge. And, as I've gone through the whole marketing thing, I've made some mistakes. I've spent money in areas where I shouldn't have. And I'm trying to rectify that ship. I don't begrudge having done it, because I learned from it. But wow, what a challenge. What a challenge. You would think that by now, with the podcast that I've done, and then I've been in magazines, and I've done this and I've done that, and still you walk into a place and they'll go, I never heard of you. And you can't get mad at them. They just haven't. It's the truth. So, yeah.
But, sometimes, because you mentioned, basically the issue sometimes is the shelf space and what you're given. And, I was reading an article last year because with tobacco business, we have to focus on other areas than cigars, even though cigars is our main focus. Like the big tobacco companies, like how do they get their cigarette packets out? And the point of sales. And apparently there's this whole thing. I mean, they pay for shelf space, so sometimes you're up against that kind of stuff going on, even in the cigar industry, where a bigger company might come in and say, look, if you want to carry our thing, or, you want a deal, you're going to have to put us like here, like in this space, and it needs to look like this. And then, if you're a smaller guy, then you don't get that. And you're like, you're up against, they just say, well, we're just going to put it there. And then they say, oh, I'm sorry, it didn't sell.
And there are companies out there, without mentioning names, that when they go in, they go all in. They'll occupy an entire wall. They will occupy an entire wall, and they bring everything, lighting, everything else. And it's hard to compete against that. The consumer walks in, that's what they see. That's all they see. And, if you're relegated to a corner way on the left, by the time that individual walked around the humidor, he's already got 3 cigars in his hand. He's looking at his budget. He goes, maybe next time I'll try that one, but right now I got what I'm going to spend. And he's out, or she's out. So, yeah, that happens. That happens a lot. And if you're not in that territory to sit there and talk to that shop owner and say, hey, come on, Antoine, give me a break here, man. You got to give me a little better spot. They're not selling because no one sees them. Give me a better spot. Try me out like this for a while, and we strike up some kind of a deal. If that's not happening, they may never sell. You wind up in a discount bin, the kiss of death. Bye-bye. So,
yeah, somebody asked, do cigar companies pay for space in the retail humidor? I never heard of them actually paying for space, but I have heard of them, like you said, coming in and saying, we want our cigars in this space.
And we want so many facings, and they have a huge footprint, and that attracts. That's another thing with it too. So when I first started, my plan, and it's still my plan going forward, I came out with those 3 wrappers that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and we did it in 3 sizes. So I did my homework, and the 3 most popular sizes in the States were a Gordo 6x60, a Toro 6x50, and a Robusto, whatever. We did ours a 5x52. Those are the 3 most popular sizes with the 3 different blends. Most shops weren't bringing in 9 boxes at a pop. So they bring in just a few. And because I didn't have that big a footprint, they would get lost. It was almost unappetizing to the consumer to walk in, and they only see 3 little boxes of something and 17 of something else. Well, what the heck's going on here, right? So that's been tough. But the reason I stuck with it was I didn't want to saturate. I didn't want to overwhelm. Number one. Number two, I wanted that core line to get some legs, which it did. And then when I launched the Reserva line, I did it in 3 sizes, 2 wrappers. And again, it was kept down to a very slow process. I could have launched, there's a lot more that I can do with the Reserva line. I have Lanceros I can launch Coronas, I can launch a bunch more lines. And I could have done it all at once because I do have the luxury of having the factory. I chose not to. I don't want to saturate. I think it's in the same way that it's enticing sometimes to see a wall full of one brand, it's overwhelming. And I think some of that product simply will not sell. So what's the point of having it there? It doesn't sell all equally. If you look at it, certain sizes will, or certain blends will, and others just kind of gather dust and cobwebs. But the shop owner was kind of thrust into that position because they had to carry the stuff that would sell. I'm not there. I don't think I'll ever use that mode of business, but it happens. So I don't know. Maybe it'll fail, but right now I'm sticking to my guns, and it's been going well only because I've grown. I've grown every year. Every year we've grown. This year, but the other years.
But it's not just you though. In this situation, it's everybody. I mean, big, small, you're having to pivot right now. And any plans that you had have been disrupted one way or another, whether you want to admit it or not. I mean, when you have entire states or cities saying that you can't leave your home or shouldn't, and this business is going to be closed and that business is going to be closed. You can't have more than this many people. I mean, that's a industry-wide thing that I think we're going to be dealing with for, a couple months.
I agree.
Whenever this thing finally settles. I mean, it's not just going to be a bat to business, the next week after, it's done. It's going to be a gradual, because like you said, how do you have an event with people when, like, think of a basic trade show. You're right up against people usually, and right standing, face to face with people. It's like you can't do the 6 feet, apart. So it's going to be a major adjustment for us all to figure out how to move forward. But I know we will. So.
Oh, we will. This cannot be the new normal. This cannot be. Speaking to a friend of mine who's a CEO of of a medical type field in Michigan, we were talking about this yesterday. And while he's in the medical field, things are going well. His wife is finding herself unemployed, right? And we were talking about all this trickle down that we're just speaking right now, how it's going to affect us once this gets back going. But bottom line is, this can't be the norm. This cannot be the norm. This country can't function that way. The world can function this way.
No.
But I'd also heard, and I was optimistic initially a couple of weeks ago, that it was going to be a V economy, right? So we were going to slide on down like we're doing right now, hit rock bottom, and then zoom right on up like a V would. That V model is gone at this point. So it looks more like an L, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So unfortunately,
Yeah.
because people go back, and again, you go back, but the job you had is no longer employing anybody because they shut down. So now what do you do? You know what I mean?
Right.
And that disposable income is not there, and that affects everything, especially this. Yeah.
So in the last few minutes that we have, what is new for you? Like, what should we be focusing on for Casa Cuevas? Right now,
well, I had
that are open.
I had these, and I do have the prototype made, right? So we have samples made, and my father and I and my son were working on a mandaria, but with a matafina wrapper, because a mandaria now is in an habano wrapper. And man, I just fell in love with the samples. What I like to do when I do make samples, actually this has worked out well, is I'll smoke them when we're blending them. I've been in the DR before this fiasco. We worked on the blend then I smoked it when I got back a couple of weeks later, and now I've had some sitting there for close to a month. And I want to see if they've changed, because a lot of times you'll smoke a home run fresh and you let it sit and it becomes a dog turd. It's amazing the way that works. Usually the inverse never happens. If you don't like it from the get-go, it hardly ever becomes better, but certainly the inverse is true. But that was going to be our new launch for the IPCPR, PCA, or however you want to call it, RTDA. It was going to be an extension of La Mandaria, the sledgehammer, but with that matafina. And there's nothing in our factory that we produce with matafina. So it was going to be exclusively just for my brand. And I love that wrapper. It's tough to come by. It's tough to work with. But if you do it well, wow. Unfortunately, it may happen. It just probably won't happen as soon as we thought it would. And then do I just launch it haphazardly? Do I wait till January for TPE? Will there be a TPE? How long will this last? What, right? So,
none of us know.
None of us know.
We're kind of just going with the flow right now, and hopefully it will kind of settle down.
Hopefully. Again, this has to pass. This has to pass.
At some point.
I hope it doesn't hurt people too badly in the process, though. Not just our industry, but just folks out there, hardworking folks. I hope, it doesn't. I love Matafina, too. I'm really bad about reading the comments, and once in a while I'll see some. I'm just terrible at it because I'm on my phone and I'm old. I gotta go like this. So, anyway.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left, but, I wanted to thank you for coming on today. Like I said, I'm just using this time to kind of get to know people a lot more and have a conversation, because when you and I usually interact, it's at a trade show.
Yeah.
And there's usually like 10,000 things going on. I have my
it's a quick hello and goodbye. Yeah. Yep.
And you have a line of people trying to talk to you. So having like an hour conversation usually is not like in the cards for the most part, if business is doing good for for us both.
You're right. But you know what? Like I said, you're essential, and thank you so much for considering me. Thank you so much for the invitation. It doesn't get lost on me that that same exposure I was talking about and staying relevant, this is part of it. And you know, and you're one of the good guys in the industry. So you've always been a gentleman. You've always been a pleasure. It's true though. It's easy for me to say because it's the truth. So
I just want to show
you know,
people real quick. So like, this was like the August 2019 issue of Tobacco Business.
I remember that.
Of course, this is the story that we, the editor-in-chief, Steve Ross, did. So
There I am with my dad. Yep. There's my pops and I looking at tobacco. Yep.
So this issue, you can actually access this entire issue like on tobaccobusiness.com for those of you who haven't read it or seen it. And there's also like a miniaturized web version that you can just search Casa Cuevas and it'll come up. So I just wanted to do a plug there because I know that you all were hyping up the story. And that's the funny thing about media too. It's like after you get it, you know, after you get the story out there, you spend all this time like putting together, and then people, it's like that the moment it's posted, they're like, great, and then you know they move on. So you have been really good about trying to like help us and getting that story back out there and emphasis. I just wanted to share it and get people to take notice of it because I'm sure everybody's like us and they have like a little bit more extra time on their hands. So it's a great time to read that story and get to know Casa Cuevas and some of the other companies in the industry right now.
I appreciate that very much. And Steve is a phenomenal writer. He did just a terrific job. He's really good at what he does. And that's another one of the great guys in the industry. So anyway, yeah, quality people.
Oh, great. Well, like you said, so you can follow Casa Cuevas on Instagram for those who are watching this later or even listening to it.
Casa Cuevas Cigars. Casa Cuevas Cigars. Yep, they got to put cigars in there.
Website. And like I said, they're in local stores, hopefully. And if they're not, then that's a good time to request that your, retailer look them up and get in touch with them and see if you can get them into the store.
Yes, please. And everybody out there, be safe, be careful. And remember, it's not really so much about us. If you're young and healthy, it's about passing it on to folks that aren't. And that's the scary part right there. It can't get lost on us, right?
Right.
I'm blessed to be very healthy, but I'm conscious that I have elderly parents and that kind of thing. So, anyway, you guys know the drill by now. You guys know the drill.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to our next encounter, whenever that is. Hopefully, it'll be PCA, but we'll see.
Yes, hopefully, we'll see. Listen, Antoine, thank you very much, my friend, and thank you everyone that chimed in. I appreciate you guys more than you know. Thank you.
Definitely.
Be well.
Be well. See you later.
Bye.